All right, welcome to Laser Focus. My name is RJ Poston. I'm with Sound and Tech. This is a series of one-on-one conversations with equine veterinary industry leaders. I ask three questions. Today's topic is it's a tough one, but it's one that must be discussed, I believe. And so we're going to talk about depression and suicide. And this is part one. And I come to this discussion here with my own personal experience in a way. It's a different perspective, but I have three children. Two of them have type 1 diabetes, which is a very tough disease. And 3 years ago, my son, who was 11 at the time, he just got burned out and he was depressed and suicidal. And he tried to overdose on insulin. He's 14 now. Um, it's tough. And he's doing well. He's doing really well. So it's tough. You got to go through stuff. It's very emotional and physical and spiritually draining, but there is hope. And so we recognize those signs. We saved him, and we were able to get him the help that he needed. There's a lot of this going on in the veterinary profession, as we all know. We've been watching some of the news. And so these are people, they have families, they have colleagues and friends, and COVID doesn't help the situation. So we got to shine light on this subject, and we got to talk about it and use our platforms and be aware. And that's why we need to hear from people like our guest, Dr. Rob Franklin. And so Dr. Franklin, thanks so much for being on and talking about this and giving us your time to discuss this very important topic. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, give us some background. We would appreciate that.
Yeah. Thanks, RJ, and sympathy for you and your personal situation. It seems like no one is immune from being touched by mental health issues, whether they're firsthand, secondhand, or thirdhand. It's definitely something that is becoming more well recognized, and something that is just impacting us all. And good news is there's hope, and that there is more light being shined on it, and people like yourself can be lights, can be part of that light. And so just background on myself, I'm an equine veterinarian. I'm a husband, a father, brother, a son, and someone that is motivated not only through the profession of veterinary medicine, but also through servant leadership and finding ways that we can use our gifts, whether that's education or resources, or just natural talents, to help other people. And that has veterinary medicine's been a huge platform for me. I've been a veterinarian for 21 years, I guess coming up on 22 now. And in the opportunities that veterinary medicine lends itself, any healthcare profession, allow us to help other people. And ultimately, that's what we're doing. We're helping people by proxy of helping their pet or their horse to have more enriched, fulfilled lives. Pets and horses are extremely valuable as therapeutic animals. People think about therapeutic riding centers and therapy dogs. The reality is that every dog and cat and horse is a therapy animal for us all. And there's numerous studies that show the improved well-being of individuals that have animals versus those that don't. And whether you're dealing with mental health issues, or you're recovering from heart disease, open heart surgery, any of those things, there's data that show how these animals positively impact our lives. So it's a great profession, and people like yourself within the profession, and I know I've worked hand in hand with one of your colleagues at Sound, Scott Giebler. We spent a lot of time volunteering together in Central America, and I know that you guys at Sound have a big heart for service as well. I'm an equine practitioner in Central Texas, about an hour north of San Antonio, an hour and a half west of Austin, in a small town, Fredericksburg. Texas is a little version of Napa. It's a great place. You should come and visit. And then I've also, for the past dozen years, had a nutritional supplement company called Full Bucket that was the first company to have a social brand associated with the business in the animal health space. So, in 2021, it's sort of part and parcel that everyone is finding a way to give back through a business, a for-profit business, and we started that. As I said, the first ones in the animal health space, and we basically recognized that the working equid, the donkeys, the horses, and the mules throughout the world, which there's approximately 80 to 100 million of them that are still very important in the developing countries around the world, that these animals suffer from many maladies, and many of them are very simple maladies they're difficult to overcome. And the one that we chose to really help with is nutrition. So we use our nutritional supplement company to provide nutritional supplements to these working equids in a 1-for-1 model. And so that's been very inspiring to me, and it's also been a great sense of our way. It's a wellspring for me for having a life of gratitude and just finding balance in my own life. But like you say, I mean, we're all touched with depression and anxiety and suicide, and I'm certainly not immune to that, and I've been touched as well. And so you've got to have those well springs that you can go back to help drive yourself forward, and so that we can be lights out there for our colleagues and friends and family. A few years ago, we had a new committee, or it started off as a task force, talking about wellness or well-being, and what is that, and how as a profession do we handle that? What's our role? And so is an active member of the AAP and currently the vice president of the organization. We started a task force that has now become a full-fledged committee, and it's made up of several a diverse population of equine veterinarians in industry and private practice and academia, from different age groups, different genders. And so all of us work to help identify wellness issues within the profession and find ways for the AAEP to lean into those issues, to provide resources for members, to make sure that that everything we do has an eye towards wellness. So we call it healthy practice, and it's sort of a play on words. There's a lot of meaning in health and in practice, and so we try to identify things that can help our members stay healthy. And we sort of divide those up into 5 pillars, and different authors and experts use different pillars. We've chosen to use 5 pillars, and those are financial, physical, occupational, spiritual, and emotional wellness. And so we believe that most things wellness related fit into those categories, and some split it into 3, some split it into 12. But that seems to work for us, and it helps us keep our eye on a diverse set of factors that can any of them that can get sort of low for people can result in an unhealthy practice, and how that manifests can can be on a spectrum of different symptoms and ways that shows up in people's lives, but they all can generate from those 5 categories we find.
And we are going to be posting at the end of this tools, resources. And again, this is just part one. Part two, we're going to delve into some other similar topics, but explore that a little bit. So here's my first question to you, Dr. Franklin. And I think this is important. What are the common denominators that put your profession at an increased risk for burnout and depression and suicide?
It's a good question. I'm going to first book in this session by acknowledging the fact that I'm not an expert, that I am a concerned constituent of the veterinary profession, but my leadership role is not one that is derived because I'm an expert in this field. I'm interested in this field. I'm compassionate about this field, but I learn something every day, and half of what I learn is what my bias or current set of beliefs, where it's erroneous. So just want to make sure that is well acknowledged, because I don't have all the answers. You ask a question that I think all of us want to know, and that is, where are the things that we can go to head this off? And I think that's what you mean by, okay, if we can identify what are the common denominators, then we can go and we can target those very precisely and come up with solutions and to the problem. However, it's more complex than that. And again, I think that it goes back to disturbances in any of those sort of pillars, if you will. So people can arrive at depression and anxiety through lots of avenues. So trying to figure out what are the ones that are predisposing our profession. I think we get some ideas, but I think that we probably still don't know what we don't know, and there's not going to be a simple answer, no matter how much understanding we have. One of the things about our profession is that the nature of animal healthcare workers is that we tend to statistically have more social anxieties, and we tend to be more introverted than the general population. I think that relating well to animals, perhaps choosing a profession that allows you to relate to those animals, oftentimes stems because we don't relate as easily to people, and so we perhaps naturally feel a bit introverted or marginalized, even in social settings. So I think that there is an innate selection of animal healthcare workers. There's innate tributes of animal healthcare workers that probably put us at some risk for having mental health issues. I also know that there are generational issues as well, and the generations that Millennial and Generation Z, definitely, again, statistically, these aren't my opinions, but just based off of the data that I've seen, have higher incidences of anxiety and depression. Where does that come from? I think that the world has become very complicated in itself. I think that social media and the way that we act with social media, the way that social media is touches our lives almost consistently. You mentioned bullying. I mean, there's just there's there's so many things, imposter syndrome, bullying, that come out of social media that make, I've got a freshman in high school, 15-year-old, and she's got a little sister who's 11. I'm dealing with it firsthand, right? And so um, the stressors they're under, the social stressors, are unlike anything that you and I grew up in. So we can't necessarily understand it because we didn't traverse that, but I think we're empathetic because we see it and we know how hard it affects them, and so we're daily trying to help those people. So I think that there are some generational issues that affect our profession as well. The AVMA released a study on well-being, and the people that had the highest sense of well-being were boomer mixed animal veterinarians, food animal veterinarians, actually.
Hmm.
And that to me is a little bit counterintuitive. Um, but that they were clearly the people, the cohort in our profession that were I won't use the word happy, but they self-identified as having the highest level of well-being. So that you think about being a food animal veterinarian, you've got lots of on call. You've got a very strenuous, physically strenuous profession. Your work environment is not sitting in an air conditioned building in downtown Dallas. That's hard work, right? And it's relentless work as well. But those people identified with a high level of well-being. So that creates a lot of it stems me to think a lot. So other sort of elephants in the room are financial hardship, with people having tremendous student debt loans that are disproportionate to starting salaries. So it's becoming a privilege to be a veterinarian, especially an equine veterinarian, because it's not something you can just go out and pay whatever, go overseas, pay out of state tuition, get burdened with all that student debt, and then enter the profession and expect the profession just to pay you handsomely for your education. It can happen, but it's very delayed sort of gratification on the equine side. So that does create a retention issue for the profession, for the equine profession, because the financial hardships don't necessarily allow people to stay in the profession, especially those that have chosen to seek an education outside of their home state or wherever they may be able to get in-state tuition, because the debt loads are just too high to service in the equine profession unless you get creative with student debt management. One thing that I found interesting, though, was that the British Equine Veterinary Association found that they have the same issues with retention and of equine veterinarians in the UK, even though the UK doesn't have the student debt load problems that we have. So student debt is a problem. Financial hardship at any level. I don't care if you're 65 and maybe you don't have a good retirement plan set up, and that can create financial hardship. People could be in their 40s and have financial hardship, and anytime think of all the Wall Street stuff and where people took their own lives by suicide, where because there were massive financial situations. So we know that financial hardship can create depression, anxiety, and can lead to suicide. So that is an issue. I think that after hours duty is something that people complain about, but then again, I frame that against those boomer food animal veterinarians that had a high level of well-being. So it's not the only issue, but certainly it does wear people out doing after hours. And there's also compassion fatigue, and I think we think about that as having to put animals down. I think that's probably a small part of it. Compassion fatigue. One of my classmates, sort of helped me understand it a little bit better when he spoke about the day-to-day, us wanting the health of these animals so bad. We want to be, we want our diagnoses to be correct. We want our treatment plans and operations to go smoothly. And every time that they don't, it's another negative into our psyche. And that's where I think compassion fatigue comes in, is whenever, clients become upset with us because the outcome wasn't as per their liking, or maybe was different than what we had given whenever we sort of rolled out a prognosis. So those little incremental things weigh on us very, very heavily throughout the course of the day, week, month, a year. And over the course of our profession, that's where I think compassion fatigue comes in. So going back to your question, what are the common denominators? They are legion.
Yeah.
There's not three that I think if we just manned up and put all of our forces behind attacking those, that we're going to undo this. And so many of them stem from things that are outside of our profession, or they stem from things that happen very early in our profession. And so that can be an issue as well.
Great. Let me jump into the second question, if you don't mind, because you're talking about there's a whole host of issues that affect when someone's in that dark time. What do you think they can do about it? Recognizing it is one thing. What are they able to do when they find themselves in that dark time?
That's really very, very difficult for me to say, because I think that's a very, very personal question. And I think that me giving advice to someone that is in that place can come across very condescending. And so, I think more about, things that we can do to let our colleagues know that have, that are interacting with people, give them tools. So I've had, again, some personal things much akin to yours, where I've had to lean into those situations, and they're very uncomfortable. And so I don't know exactly what that person is going through, but I've had to learn how to with that person. And I think that you're asking a question, and I guess I'm going to give you a boilerplate answer. If you are having suicidal thoughts, please contact the suicide prevention hotline. Please seek immediate care. Please seek counseling and therapy, and call 911 if things are seeming overwhelming, because we see you out there, and we know that you're hurting, and we don't have all the answers, but we do know that there's hope out there for you. And so that's what I'd like to say to those people that could potentially be tuning into your podcast, that are dealing with those situations. But for those of us that are maybe not dealing with the situation, but are being touched by the situation, tools that I find or have found and continue to look for tools is first of all, like you said, let people know that that you see them. I don't think that everyone expects us to have an answer, but I think that it's nice to know you're not alone. And so I think that's important. I think that that offering hope, and not in a Pollyanna sort of way, but offering true hope for people is a great way. I think as veterinarians and veterinary or animal health professionals like yourself, there's a couple of tools. One's called QPR and one's called Ask. They're both analogous to CPR for someone that's had a heart attack, and they're ways that you can arm yourself with knowing what to do if someone comes up and you recognize them and you ask them, are you having a problem? Are you thinking of hurting yourself? And knowing what to do there. And they're very basic steps. And so you can Google those things and find that. That's important. And otherwise, I think that, we have to encourage people to seek community. That's a big deal that we're trying to do with the AAP. On the wellness committee, we're having these group meetups, and we started that with COVID because people are feeling socially isolated. So we've tried to establish platforms where people can get together and have that sense of community that a professional organization like the AAP represents, but do it in a way that we can navigate with COVID.
Thank you. All right. So the third question, I want to bring in our friend because we've been discussing this, Dr. Easterwood and I, and obviously we're all three friends here, and Dr. Easterwood and I have sat down numerous times in the last few years discussing, this topic and this passion that we have for, again, shining light on this. So there she is, Dr. Easterwood. Welcome. It's good to see you.
Hi, friend.
Hi, and Dr. Franklin's on with us, and we know you're down at Houston right now, and Dr. Easterwood's at Texas A&M University. But Dr. Easterwood, would you please go ahead and ask your question to Dr. Franklin?
Well, hey, Rob. I know that you and I have talked about this subject many times, and you have helped me tremendously when I have been through dark times. And I'm very blessed to have a circle of colleagues that are in my safe box that I know that I can be quite honest with and can help me through those dark times. But what are your suggestions, Rob, for when we know we've got colleagues that are struggling and they don't reach out or they don't feel like they've got a safe place where they can share, but we see it and we recognize it? What do you think we ought to do to be able to reach them and help pull them out?
Yeah. Good question, and it's great to see you. And yes, we've shared together and supported each other, and I think that that's ultimately where we need or what we need in this profession, in this world, are just foxhole buddies, people that you can lean on whenever you're stuck, or feeling a bit hopeless, or feeling very hopeless, or just feeling like there's no oxygen in the room and you don't know where to go. Community is paramount. And I think that, having a professional organization and being a member, an active member in those things, those are great ways to seek that community. But back to your question. So what do you do? I think the first thing to do is just let people know that you see them, and let people know that, hey, you're not feeling good. I can see that. And not necessarily trying to, we're problem solvers, right? We're healthcare providers. And so when a horse is lame, we try to make it sound. When a artery is bleeding, we look for a hemostat. Unfortunately, I don't know that fixer mentality works with people that are depressed. I think it's more showing compassion towards those people, and why I think it's important for us to be a light for those people, but I think that it's, some mental health professionals have instructed me not to try to go in there and tell people, wow, can't you just see how great it is? I mean, just look around you. Look how great it is. Look where we live. Look at your education. Look at your profession. Look at the clients that love you. I mean, that's what we want to tell people, but I've been instructed that when someone's really stuck, um, that's not what they want to hear.
Yeah.
And I think that may be part of the way out, but that's not the first rung on the ladder. So to me, the first rung on the ladder is looking at people and looking into their soul and letting and connecting at that level and letting people know that I'm here and I don't have all the answers, but I'm here and I care. And I think that probably is very simply said and done, but oftentimes discounted for the importance. And I think based on my experience that perhaps is the most important thing. Obviously, there's some things that RJ and I spoke about trying to redirect people and arming yourself with something like the QPR or ASK, and so that you know how to deal with someone that's really in a tough spot, and you know where to direct them. So I think that that's important. And then, again, longer term, it's helping those people find that sense of community. So whatever that is, could be a ladies tennis group. It could be a horse riding club. It could be something in the profession. It could be something in the community. But when we get stuck, we really feel isolated and we feel like we're the only ones. And having people around you is just, I think, very important. So fostering those, in our workplace, we can foster those senses of community. And then I guess, the other thing to try to keep ourselves balanced is just try to keep mindful of all those different pillars of wellness, making sure that you're spending time on working on all those things and don't let any of them get down to critical low levels. Maintaining your physical wellness, your financial wellness, your occupational, your spiritual, your emotional, just having a mind to look at all those different elements, and then, making sure that you're giving back. That is just a great way that I find to reset myself, is because I get, inside my head and narratives can get really negative. But whenever I go and put someone else's needs in front of my own, it sort of resets my caliber on my own well-being.
I'm gonna just put Dr. Easterwood on the spot here because this is something that you do so well, and that's serving and getting others to serve. I know I'm putting you on the spot. Are you able to just kind of give us a little brief overview on how that works? Because I totally agree. Giving back, serving, I think is very healthy.
I agree completely. I think that puts everything in perspective. We all get into this profession because we want to help. I see it in our students. They all want to help. We want to help the animal. We don't always factor in the human part of it. And that's sometimes the most difficult part of our jobs, those human interactions. But when we take ourselves out of our veterinary profession and help in our communities, just like Rob said, it can be tremendously grounding, and it puts a whole perspective on the day's events and the day's struggles. For me personally, it certainly does. And to be able to give back to the things that are really important to me, it's just, there's just no way to describe that feeling. And it really, at the end of a long day when things have been really rough, or I see one of my students that's really having a rough time, to invite them to go serve with you, you know those people on a whole different level. And that's one of the reasons why Rob has been in my safe box for a long time, is because I have served with him. And so I know what his heart looks like outside of the profession. And that's really important. It's really important.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna keep on that. That's awesome. Well, unless you guys have anything else to add for this part one, we're going to keep this conversation going. Trust me. I think that, you know, mental health curriculum is important. And we're going to provide, as Dr. Franklin and I discussed, we're going to provide some tools here at the end and resources. But we'll wrap this one up. Dr. Franklin, it's awesome to see you. Thank you for your great input. Dr. Easterwood, we're going to keep talking about this. So thank you guys for joining us, and appreciate your time. We'll see everybody next time on Laser Focus. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much to Sound, and thank you so much, RJ. It's such an important message. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bye, guys. Have a great day. Thank you.